Drupal. In Drupal, we have company organizations like Argyum, Azim Premji Foundation, Qatar Foundation, mostly non-profit organization. And Frappe we started like 3 years back. We have certain development happening along with Frappe. There's a grant that they have given us for developing certain features, and then we have few clients in Frappe. Apart from that, we have been developing few solutions for startups and then delivering it to them and all. So I'm not someone with a tech background. I did my BBM, but I have been coding since 6th standard. So I'm not a hardcore like developer or anything, but I mostly hack new technologies and try to figure things out and product ideas and all. That's how I got into this LLM and stable diffusion space. So we have been mostly working on vernacular solutions around AI. So one of the things that was very concerning, or that something that was challenging when AI came, was like if you look at all the design tools and visual tools, they did not have a language until now, right? So if you look at the creative space and all, you usually people make memes out of the boards and signages in villages, where they'll have this zinger burger and vegetable burgers, the spelling mistakes, right? So I often tell people, like, it's a good thing, right? Anyone can design. You won't see in other fields where you can, when you have a language barrier, but design doesn't have a language barrier, right? But suddenly generative AI came and AI-based designing came, and suddenly English became the language of everything, right? And then if you start looking at the kind of art that's coming out, people who can imagine in English can get really, really good out, right? And people who have basic English gets very basic out, right? You have to visualize it in that language. So then we started experimenting with available translation, machine translation and all those things, and try to get output in local language and all those things. It's a side project that was going on. So when this call came up for this event, we were just looking for certain examples that we could show quickly, that you can quickly prototype using LLMs and using the stable diffusion kind of generative art platforms, and then closed solutions like Midjourney and all those things. So we have quickly did few examples. So because the audience is mixed, what I will do is I'll just run through them, and then I'll let you drive in whatever direction you want to take, right? So firstly, what I will do is like we'll go in and have a look at. So I think we'll walk through the slide initially. So one of the way we were, this is an example use case. We mixed LLMs and we mixed stable diffusion, for example. We have certain prototypes here. So the whole idea was like, people can actually, this is how you give an explanation of a person, right? If a theft happened or someone, you witness something and you are explaining a culprit to that person, right? So you could actually arrive at this using an LLM. So we have already did a prompt. I'll show you in the Frappe application, where for this case we used GPT-3, but we were able to get a closer result using Llama 2 and Falcon and all. But they were not very reliable for a demo. Like we have not yet cracked it to the point where we can use it. So what it does is like, it can have a conversation with the person on the other end, and then it could ask questions until it have enough to have identify the person, right, the culprit, and then that can be passed as a prompt into a AI model, which could generate a sketch, right? And then that can again be transferred to an image to image model, which then you can further keep talking to it. No, not that eye or not that nose, right? A bit more beard, a bit more. So the whole what happened? The screen is gone, I guess. You want to try? It's turned off. Okay. So that is one thing. And then for the purpose of prototype, we also created a form-based input, where the form will ask you certain questions and you can input based on that, right? So right now we are not using any fine-tuned model. We are using the standard diffusion XL model, which is the latest one, and it's not trained for Indian faces or Indian thing, right? But if there are a lot of training methods right now where you could actually train based on Indian characters, which would then start giving you something very peculiar. Right? That's one example. And second example, which I have taken some output, has to do with a model that is trained on me, my face, with 30 photos of mine, and then it can generate any kind of images out of my face. So imagine you know who the culprit is, and then you know that person might have grown a beard or maybe have shaved his head or put something else, right? Then once you have the existing photo, you could generate all possible faces of that person using just prompts, right? I have a few examples around that, and then I'll show you a quick demo of that, of both the generative, the LLM based chatting part and also the the standard diffusion model part. The click is not working. Oh, we are in the video. The recording has stopped. Give me a second. Oh, you have mirrored now, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, fine. But I'll reduce the resolution. Really sorry. I'll just fix this. Displays. Okay, recording again. Again video. Okay, fine. Yeah, so for example, this, after you get this description, right? This is one example output that that particular model generated based on that input. And then using image to image, we gave some more input saying little more older and a person has a beard, and then this could keep going on, right? And then also you can use in painting and out painting models where you could just brush on the nose and ask for a very specific nose and all those things. So such kind of guidance are already possible. We just have to wire this together, right? So these are output we have taken from developer tools and all. And then it could be connected like, so again I'm going to make a lot of assumptions here. I don't work in your space. So for example, I assume a lot of thefts and a lot of cases keep coming, right? And you cannot take sketches of all the people. It's not practical. So you go for the most important and the most critical cases, right? So imagine it was so easy like filling a web form or a WhatsApp board where you can explain what happened, what crime happened, and explain to it. Maybe you might not be able to solve that, right? But that could start capturing a pattern. Imagine the same description keep popping up at different places, right? Then we have data to point out, suddenly that person then pops out in another city, right? We suddenly start getting data around it, right? And then we know who is a serial offender and who is not a serial offender. This kind of data can start coming in, and people also can start filing complaints in a more easier way than going to a police station and all those things. And from another perspective, the personnel who is actually doing the data also can do it very easily, right? You don't need to call an artist to do the sketch. Someone with less technical skill can do that. And then, so in that case, it can be scaled up. And then, now that irrespective of the debate around it, facial recognition databases and all these things are coming up, right? This could even potentially start pulling out links to faces that's already in the database, right? Okay, this 10 theft is linked to, potentially linked to this person or something like that, right? Those kind of things can be imagined beyond this, right? And the second use case has to do with an explanation. So I had trained, so my name is, I don't, if you don't recall it, my name is Safwan, and I have created a model called Safwan Diffusion, which is basically a very basic dream booth training that would take around half an hour and maybe $2 to $3 of GPU. And so once the model is ready, you can keep generating all kind of output of that person, right? with hair, without hair, with long beards, right? As an astronaut, as a militant, as a hip hop artist or whatever, right? So these are all things that was just generated by 3 or 4 lines of words, right? The moment, so the whole idea is like a lot of commercial apps are already doing this for profile pictures. You might have already seen like apps like Lensa and all already doing that. But one of the application could be the extension of the fugitive thing that we generated with AI, right? We could then generate variations of that person in different use cases. So we'll just quickly go into an example of. So this one was built using GPT-4. So I'll just quickly show you an example. And I'll show you how easily it can be tweaked. For example. So this keep asking until it have enough information on the person, right?
Can you zoom?
More, huh? Is it visible now?
Yeah.
Okay. Facial features, body build. Now the interesting part is the whole application is just this one line of code. So people are already using GPT, chat GPT and all knows that, like you can tune. So this whole application is running based on this system command. Check if the below described is the minimum detail required for a sketch, fugitive based on the witness account, and keep asking question until you have enough for generating things. So right now I could actually show you how this application can be changed into something else just by using English language. So instead of chatting now, I'm just going to remove this. And I'm going to say like you are a let's say let's do something different. You're a mean, unhelpful assistant. Be sarcastic. For example, okay. So it's a so this it keeps saying like so just that one line changed everything, right?
How is this different from the playground?
It's exactly the same.
It's the same.
It's exactly the same. What I'm showing is like this is a low code tool. I've written almost no code for this, right? Very limited, just an API call thing. The whole idea is to show you how solutions like Frappe and all this tool can be used even for non-technical people to prototype ideas before you can take it to scale, right? So this is all it takes, right? Once you have a very basic thing wired up, this is all it takes to build solutions around it. So for example, how many of you know this thing called drama triangle? In this psychologist, right? When you have two people in conflict or in couple therapy and all, they have something called drama triangle to understand the situation where each one is in which state and all. So usually the therapist has to take the account of the both the person involved and then convert this into a drama triangle and process it and all. It usually takes them few hours. And there are also other things like transactional states, adult, parent and all these things. So all these involve converting the account that they captured from the conflicted parties and converting into a different model. So I have been prototyping a lot of solutions by just having one base at the end, where the only thing that you will be changing is this, right? So for Argyem we did a solution, a prototype solution wherein a person can chat with the article, right? So again, you have worked with ChatGPT. The whole idea is just to restrict the particular chat to that article, right? So the reason I'm showing this is to show you how solutions like Frappe can be used for doing very large prototypes, but with minimal effort. So if I had time, I would have connected this to the Stable Diffusion API as well. So for example, this is one of the provider of Stable Diffusion, one of the developer of Stable Diffusion open source model. and this is their playground. So you mentioned the playground, right? This is the generative art playground for them. So here we are using the latest model, Stable Diffusion XL. So once you are happy with this, you have the code here itself, right? It's very basic and very easy to use, and you can play around with this particular model and then get this thing. So they also have certain standard styles, but you could always give your own style. So this is exactly what we are using in the other model. So if to give you an example, this is another form-based interface that was built around that fugitive thing. So here you could either give a detailed description, or instead you could just give some of the information here, right? And then so then it generates an output based on that. So this again just have a textual prompt in the back, and then this information enriches it further, and it outputs an image, right? And this can then be further transferred to a image to image canvas, and from there you could have, if you want, you can give a brush tool for masking particular part of the face, to change the eyes, to change the nose, but your interface is always language, right? And with a machine translation in between, it can be any language, right? You can have Malayalam, you can have Hindi, you can have any languages that we have machine translation for. And the backend we used was Frappe. So this is again another open source solution available out there, and I very strongly recommend anyone who has not used Frappe to use it, as it's surprisingly easy to use. Like, I have been on Drupal and Node.js and Django and all for almost 7 years, and after that when I discovered Frappe, it's like exciting every day, like how much you can do with so less, right? And one of the problem I have seen with a lot of low-code solutions that you have online there, for example, many people use solutions like Airtable, some people use Bubble. These are things that you can quickly build solution, but the moment you have to scale and go, you will have to build something else, right? But Frappe, you can take it to the scale. You can just then deploy it and keep building around it. Very large companies like Zerodha and all build their infrastructure around on top of this. So it's fully scalable, fully open source, no licensing issues. So I'll show one more thing and we'll go into an interactive session. So this is another solution that we have been playing around with. So this again uses machine translation and these same APIs in the backend. We were trying to experiment how local language can be used. So I don't know how many of you can understand Malayalam here. This basically means there's a usage for people in Malayalam where a chicken that has got out of the cage at night in moonlight, right? It's usually a reference to something that is confused and lost. Like people ask, like, why are you like a hen that is out at night, right? So it's a common usage. So this is an output, watercolor output based on that input, right? And this actually we have right now we have connected with Azure's and Google's APIs, so it automatically detects the language. So I think we have an example thing somewhere. So you could give any languages, Hindi or any language, and it would generate those outputs. So just quickly. Use Google Translate. It's visible, right?
Yeah. Can we zoom? You zoom it.
Yeah. Anyone who understands Hindi, just let me know if the translation is coming correctly. It's correct?
Too formal, nobody talks like that, but it makes sense. Swap images.
Okay.
Oh my god.
One second. Let's try this out.
Kya video, kya bola?
So we have certain things here. Let's say we'll use Van Gogh style art, right? So this was originally a Malayalam tool. That's why it's called Mallu AI here. It's not really. So then we thought maybe it should be for all languages. Doesn't really matter. Okay, I think it did not give what we asked for. Hair is red. Huh? We'll try with some other art styles. What is watercolor? Yeah.
I think the text wasn't associative, right? For example, you said river, but did you have to define more the association with the color of the water is red or the river's water?
River with red.
That will give us better results, but we were getting good result on this model with this. So once we moved to Excel, Stable Diffusion Excel, right? So if you go for Stable Diffusion 2, you have to write a whole paragraph.
But technically that would be a hallucination, no? If it is associating the three.
We'll try one more and then. Yeah, everything is an hallucination.
Right now we don't intend it to be generated.
It's like an acceptable level of hallucination is okay. Right?
What I like is you try to save yourself. Everything is hallucination. Sometimes it's bad.
Okay, yeah, we got it in watercolor, right? Water, red water, and all those things. So, huh? So the whole idea is like to come up with a tool that is multilingual, and then can. So we actually had some more solution that was not ready. So we already have upscale here, which gives higher resolution. We also had two other solutions on this. One was image to image, wherein you could replace few things within the image with text, right? Replace the tree color with green or something. And then we also had in painting, wherein you could just brush one part of the image and then prompt again to just fill those part, right? So the whole idea is you already have certain solutions like invoke AI and all, but that requires you to have your own GPUs, and at least you will need 12 GB of graphic card and all to have a decent out. And in that itself, you'll have to wait 10 to 20 seconds for each small changes to happen. So here we are using which APIs that are available, and then you only pay on demand, right? Another problem with GPU is the initial investment, and if you try to get a GPU or server, it comes at anywhere around 35,000 per month on cloud. So it's very expensive. So when you have a web interface, then you only pay for the requests. So for this AI model, it's coming around 70 paise per request right now, and that cost will keep going down, right? So I think we have same thing for text as well. So here you could do two things. You could prompt in any language and then get output in any language. So it's kind of cross referencing. So for example, I'll ask in Malayalam what is the philosophy of life, and I'm expecting output in Hindi, right? So here there's no magic happening here. Like it's just a machine translation and language model, right? But one thing that I realized, like I had a client visit in UAE, so I simply showed them they could prompt in English. I mean Arabic and get English output, right? So every Indian told me it's a crap idea. Like they told me it's like everyone knows Google Translate, everyone knows ChatGPT, so no one is going to get excited. So I went to Arab predominant area and into a Starbucks, and I gave it to some people and told them to try out, right? And then they started sending me in WhatsApp prompts in Arabic, saying tell the vendor I'm not going to pay this month, right? This kind of inputs, and they were getting very professional English output. And I said, this is very good. This is very good, high. And the whole thing they were saying was like they know English, they are highly educated, but they cannot write that level of sophisticated English, and they are very comfortable in their first language, Arabic. So they could prompt in Arabic and get an English, and they have enough understanding to read it and validate it if it's good or not, right? The only problem, they were not ready to use a web interface. They were asking for an iOS app. You have iOS app? Send me the link, right? So the whole, so then suddenly what I understood was like when you have interfaces that connects these languages and make it easy for them, right? Yeah, there is Google Translate, there is ChatGPT, but when you build solution around very specific use cases, then it clicks. So in law and all these places, there's ample opportunities, right? After that, I kept talking to a lot of advocates in my batch, right? So all of them are so happy after ChatGPT came because the seniors don't know to use ChatGPT. So suddenly they have an edge, right? And after Chandrachud and all came, I think a lot of filings, everything became digital, right? Now they have the edge. The senior lawyers are dependent on them. on all those things, right? They are creating petitions very fast using ChatGPT, and many of the seniors don't have any clue how they are doing this or anything, right? So we'll just move on to interactive part, and you could drive this. Like there are already, a lot of people that might have already worked on these things. You can go.
What you are building essentially is using Frappe solution.
Frappe is just a web framework to build anything. It doesn't have any AI to it, but you could save a lot of time in building permissions, roles, or interfaces, and all those things. So you could focus on what you're building instead of.
So the fugitive idea is really good, but the real use case comes. I almost never seen any. It only happens in movies.
Actual drawing.
Ask for a sketch.
Got it.
Majority of the problems that we face is we do get CCTV footage. Often it is very raw, incomprehensible, and we get very blurry pictures.
Got it.
So the tech will be very useful to us if you take a very blurry picture, and maybe if in case somebody happens to see that person, and the blurry image can be developed into something which is useful.
Got it.
Rather than totally creating something from the scratch, like saying from whether he's a Caucasian or he's
Got it.
from other place. So that is one.
Feedback.
Can they put like if I give it a blurry image, can it enhance? There are some very expensive solutions.
No, we already have one inbuilt into this. So, for example, this upscale is using a model which can generate a very high resolution image out of a low resolution image. From my limited experience, what I understood is like if you are an artist, right, and you can see a blurry image and then repaint it, then AI also can do it. Like if there is no eye visible in that, there's no way AI could imagine an eye there, right? But if it's a very low resolution thing, an artist can make out what kind of person is that, then even AI could make out and create a more understandable and visible high resolution image out of it. Because I tried with a lot of old digital camera photos, group photos, right? You'll have faces almost not visible. In that case, it creates alien kind of out. So, and it's very understandable because there's no input on how that face look like, right? Or it could put a face there, but then that won't be the face of. It would be similar to that Huawei app had a moon shot or something, no? Where you could take a moon photography. It became a controversy. They were placing AI moons in the photo instead of the real one they captured, right? So that can be done, but that doesn't work for our use case. But there are models and open source models which can be used for enhancing images, and they are releasing like continuously updating and releasing those models. So in this case, I'll just if you use this upscale, this gives this image as input to that and upscales that. So it doubles it. So this is 512 into 512 pixel now. It generates 1024 and 1024 without losing any details. So if that model is not warmed up, it might take time. Yeah. So this is the upscaled version. So if you can see this is low res. Now you have a high res, little more better. I could further upscale it. I can keep going. So it will just keep scaling those images for us. So for example, if you have a passport size photo of someone, you could actually print a flex using this.
Pixel density will increase.
Yeah, it can just, so it will fill also. In those cases, when it have a decent understanding, then it will fill those gaps. Even it would repair if there was some damage to that photo, it will repair those.
But one solid use case is that when your apps are also doing it, the aging phenomenon. Like if I look at models,
Yeah.
etc., rarely we get the current photograph.
Correct.
And it's been like 40 years, 10 years, 20 years since anybody has seen them.
Correct.
So that case would be really useful.
Aging can be done and facial hair can be done. Turbans.
They transform into some different avatar.
Correct.
So that would be a really good, helpful tool for police.
No, I remember that Punjab Chase was there. What was his name? Yeah. So that was like everyone in the media, right? So they had published his possible new look, right? All.
Anyone, maybe the terrorists, but even the absconding fellows.
Correct.
They generally put up beard, they generally change something and they try to. There are people who did plastic surgery also.
Oh my God.
I mean, not just fugitives, missing persons.
Missing person, yeah.
A lot.
True, true, true.
Unidentified dead bodies.
Yeah.
Got it, got it.
Generally, what happens is whenever a drowning case comes up, if I found them after 24 hours, you can't detect the face. The
Yeah.
face will become swollen. So if
Water would have.
So, if at least the detected bodies, if you can build them, fine tune that model from this undetectable state to their earlier ones, maybe such tuning can be done on the model and
I think all we are.
several unsolved murder cases,
Got it, got it.
undetected bodies can be traced.
This is an extension of what you were asking for, maybe. So, given you have access to prior information, for example, now on all of our phones we have photographs of, it knows, and any new photograph that is presented, Google can identify all the folks in that. So similarly, if given, so we were talking about CCTV footage, but given, let's say you have access to the police database of all the folks in the country, again, sorry, dystopian, very.
Correct.
But given that, does it help the cause that you can then enhance the image because you have other parameters around it?
No,
Because you have
obviously,
a prime-
obviously
prime-
the training data has can introduce bias in this. So, in my model tend to generate people like me, always, right? Because it has a bias. I have done another layer of training with just my photos, right? So same way when if you have an Indian data set, it would give more realistic Indian faces, and you could actually. So I don't know, like for me, I can understand a Malayali anywhere, right? Like the meme.
Yeah, correct.
So that's because like there is something to it, right? So if you are able to train that, if someone knows like this person is from this state or something, it could generate more like stereotypes, right? Very specific to.
Talking about these biases, especially all these evidences are required to actually convict the person. Although we know.
Correct.
When we take them to the court, there is something called test identification parade.
Correct.
The moment defense can always say that this data is trained on them, so he's not the actual person because you have shown them multiple times. They are confusing. He's the person.
Got it.
So we might detect people, but proving them they are the culprits they are the people behind theft, etc. Like CCTV footage
Correct,
is
correct.
very wrong.
True.
It could be actually true that that person would have done, but reasonably explaining without bias, because if you historically see, there are certain tribes, there are certain Kanjor gangs, there are gangs. Most of the thieves will be from certain tribes, certain locations due to several socio-economic factors.
Got it.
So most, like you said, most likely they will be picked up. So if you can work on those biases also, how you can reasonably explain these biases, and then the courts will finally use it.
Got it. And another use case might be scaling it. Like right now you are looking at images and taking photo and trying to scale, right? Like so we recently had a big controversy here related to AI cameras for traffic, right? So they have very high resolution images coming out of them. So of people on the roads and all those things. So if you scan through those feeds also, it could detect people that you're looking for example, right? You don't know where even, which CCTV to look at.
We actually don't need such great tech, but I have a very, even if we stop several people and conduct vehicle checkings, but the person who is actually checking might not know he is the person who is
Got it.
an absconding fellow. A simple app like facial recognition app, there is no
Correct.
solution as of now. It could be immediately done.
Yeah, the
Like
tech
I
is
have a
tech is
database of
already.
person who I'm looking for.
Got it.
And he just has to scan and simply the name should pop up, linked to some other.
For that, tech has existed for very long time now.
Yeah, it's a lot of times we see that we want some fancy tech, but sometimes payroll softwares, very boring softwares, there is still demand for them
Correct.
because that problem is still not yet solved.
True. So another use case that related to LLM that we did was for doctors and another one for architects. So I'll just quickly show you one more model, but I don't have a demo with me right now. How many of you have heard control net? Have you heard of control nets? So let me hope it works. Okay. So control net basically is where you can give some guidance before generating something, right? So if you know something, not mostly people specific. I don't know in which area you could use this in your use case. They don't have example from this. I think I'll just do a Google image, that'll be faster. This might be a good example. So control net is capable of doing things like this. So you could give something as basic as this, and then explain what you're looking for as a prompt, right? And it could generate this thing. So it can. There are a lot of models. Some of it are things that could even tune it better, right? So here it's actually following the correct structures. You could actually, for example, see this one. This is detecting the pose. So from this photo, and then it can generate anything in that pose, right? So I don't know. And another one is where you give very raw input and could generate very standardized. So these are all available as it is, like no technical skills or anything required. You just need some interface to pass a drawing to it, and then a prompt, and it gives out, right? So it's basic UI that you need around it. So this will be the final image related model that you might want to know. So we already discussed text to image, then image to image, then image upscaling, and another one is in painting, wherein we could paint inside an image and ask to generate it, right? So the example you saw related to, there's a photo that had this photo, right? This was actually an in painting. We just brushed here with the brush, and then give an explanation of what kind of hair you want, right? And it just filled it in. All others were text to image.
So whichever part you have masked, don't change that.
No, only that it will change. So you can reverse that. You can reverse either way.
It will not touch it.
Correct. The one you don't want, you can just mask have as a reversely masked. So you could generate things around that, like if some part is missing. That's a mechanism of how photo restoration also work. In a where there are certain part missing, it just so it does a contextual aware filling. So that Photoshop had for a while for the filling part, right? And finally, another use case that we did very similar to that, just by using GPT-4, was for doctors. I gave an interface for some doctors in Calicut to write the symptoms, right? A patient presented with so and so and so, and all those things, and it will give them a diagnosis plan and possible next questions and all. So the feedback I got was two things. One, he said don't build, and second thing he said was it's more accurate than how the physicians are handling. Mostly he gave very specific use cases where only very experienced physician would detect certain cases. Someone who came with stomach pain and others swelling on leg or something which could indicate a very rare disease and which requires a test very soon, right? And most of junior physicians or mid physician misses that. But GPT-4 was giving very accurate information on that. So the main reason he said don't do was mainly because if this system generates a real diagnosis and doctor follows something else, it could be cause for, you are a lawyer, right? It could be cause for litigation against them, right? So then I had a to and fro with him, and finally I told them, what if I'm not maintaining history of what a system is giving you, just like Grammarly, just showing you the grammar mistakes. You could choose it or you could not choose it, and it doesn't keep any trace of what was shown, right? And then he said, then it's fine, right? So he was scared about how it would affect the profession, because doctors often go, I don't know if you know, if you talk to two doctors, they will have entirely different way of approaching a disease, right? Someone might start the medication on an allergy pill for something that is not even allergy. He might have a plan, right? So they cannot explain it. But AI would always generate something very straight line, right, to the problem, and that might not be based on real experience. And that was without any fine tuning, it was giving that kind of accuracy. So the whole idea is like, because the model is very big, you can already prototype a lot of solution without any training or any fine tuning. Just with the existing data itself, you can do the prototyping. And then when you're ready and when it's proven, maybe then you can do a fine tuning or training, which is again easy now, right? Now you don't really need data engineers, ML engineers and all for any kind of training, fine tuning. Everything is low code now, right? Yeah, so that's all. If you have any questions, you can continue.
This was pretty cool. I've not seen this one. I was just thinking, even for forensic medicine, like if you want to show the trajectory of a bullet or something, that can be done using this control, right?
I don't think you know.
Like you basically just do a basic drawing of how you think the shooting happened or that sort of thing.
Yeah, it could generate, yeah.
Yeah, that would be really helpful for them to actually visualize.
For recreating an incident and all, you could just do a sketch and then.
Yeah, exactly. And then you like have it more visual.
Correct.
That would be great.
And there's also video models that could further animate it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's already there.
I wanted to ask you about the chat AI that you showed us initially. That was also used with Frappe?
That was Frappe.
That was Frappe. So like you can make a lot of chat boxes just to do grievance redressal,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
Is that what Amazon and all use? Or?
They were not using ChatGPT, but now I assume they all might be using some form of LLMs now. They doesn't have any reason not to use it now. Now it's available, right? Because I had ordered a bag on same day delivery to Amazon, and it did not come to Cochin. So I'm only here for 2 days, right? So I was continuously chatting with them, and at some point, it was real human. Like at some point, I started doubting if it's really human, right? Because it kept going, and I started feeling it's losing the context, right? Where we began the chat. So then I started doubting. It was almost unrecognizable, and they have allowed me to switch to an agent. So at least what is communicated is a real human that I'm chatting with. But at some point, because I'm working with this for very long, I started seeing patterns that could be maybe not person, right?
It's not just you, even for me, like many times when Swiggy or something goes wrong, I start doubting if it's a human because you're not actually giving me a resolution, you're just saying, is there anything else I can do?
And too empathetic and unlimited patience. So these are two key indicators that show it's an AI, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like at some point we feel them to also give up, right?
Yeah.
Like when you're so persistent, in a real human usually say like, sir, this is all I can do for you, right? I don't have any more resolutions. They always have a target to close this case also, right? But AI can, you can chat all day and it will keep being empathetic with you the whole day.
I'll just connect.
Yeah.